Everybody, good to see everybody. Good to be back at it a little bit, and just start out by congratulating Coach McCollum. Great to have him join us here, and did a great job at the press conference yesterday, and also to Beth and her staff just for. I know it's a really intensive process anytime they go out and hire someone, so I think they did a great job. I'm just excited for them. Wish them all the best as they move forward. A couple things, and we'll talk a little bit about our team, but. I think it's been a really quiet off season, which is good. Quiet's fine by me, and I think it's been really productive as well. We got back here in January, I think, as you know, and it's a really important period for us. The winter program has always been important, still remains that way. I think it's a real opportunity for guys to develop and grow physically, mentally, and it's time for the team just to start coming together. So. A lot of things that we do measure. Really pleased with the results, all the things that are measurable. Coach Braithwaite and his staff do a great job there, and overall, I think the effort was good. The work ethic that our guys demonstrated was good, and seems to have our team has a really positive attitude thus far. So it's encouraging as well. And then obviously it was good to transition into the practice phase this morning. Had a chance to get on the field finally, and that's always an exciting start. And this is really one of my favorite times of year because it's pure teaching right now. It's all about player development. There's no game planning, no timelines, no rush items, that type of deal. And really, it's about teaching on our part, the coach's part, and then our players going out and working to see what they can do to grow and develop. And that's simply the goal for everybody in the room, whether it's a 6-year senior or a handful of guys that joined us back here in January, whether new veterans. Everybody's got a chance to really improve. And one thing about football is, you can study it, you can meet, you can have walkthroughs, all those kinds of things. But until you put a helmet on and actually go out and practice, that's how you really learn how to play the game ultimately. All that other stuff's important, but that's really what it gets down to. So, and our opportunities in football are really limited. I assume probably less opportunities than any other sport there is. Ironically, but we have 15 opportunities this spring, and then we'll start again in August. So this is something we really want to take advantage of anytime we get that opportunity. It's really pretty simple. We install or teach whatever it is that we're going to practice the following day. You go out and you run those things, offensively, defensively, special teams, and you go back in the meetings and look at them, study them, and the best way for anybody to learn is watching their performance and their teammates' performance, listening to the critiques, and then you go back and do it again. So that's really what it is here for the next 5 weeks. Really deliberate pace, very slow, very methodical, good meeting opportunity. And if our team's doing it right, they'll grow in the meetings as much as they do in practice. So, just good to get started on that thing. And then just a couple points, going back to our first meeting back at on January, whatever it might have been, 17th, 18th. Try to remind our guys that each and every year that it's a new team. Every year is a new team, whether we're veteran, not veteran, and usually it's a mix, that type of deal. Really doesn't matter what happened last year. Anything that we have done or haven't done well, you're starting new. So it's really kind of important everybody understands that. And everybody's got opportunity. Every player on our roster has opportunity to improve, become a better player, hopefully, and also develop our leadership base. There are a lot of things going on during the entire course here of the season starting in January. So those things are really important points. If you look at our special teams right now, just in general, I think we've got a good group of core guys, potentially a good group of guys there. We do have veteran specialists, which is nice with obviously Drew coming back as our field goal kicker. You got Reese as the punter. Yeah, I know Weech did a great job as a returner last year. So you got 3 guys that are really experienced, have good experience, and excited to see those guys improve. And then big loss with Luke Elkin graduating, a position that doesn't get much attention unless it's a bad performer there. And Luke did a great job his entire career. So trying to fill that void right now. Offensively, one thing I think we're all excited about, it's the second year in Tim Lester's system. So I think the learning will come quicker. Everybody's responding a little bit faster now and a little bit further down the road that way from a mental standpoint. And then ironically, or for the first time in a while, we're a little bit more veteran offensively than we have been, and probably more so than defense. So that's a little bit of a change up also. Hopefully we can build on that. Defense, obviously we lost a lot of really good players, a lot of experience. on that side of the football. We've got some, really proven guys coming back, but a lot of good competition, hopefully, in that regard. And I think a neat thing about, and it's true every year, there are no incumbents, like everybody's got to earn their job, but we have a lot of positions right now that are really, wide open right now, up for grabs, and it's going to be interesting to see how these next 15 days, how things come along a little bit. But, feel good about the team overall, like as I mentioned. Personnel-wise, I think all of you obviously know that Coach Betts, Liddell, had an opportunity with an NFL team with the Giants, and it's a really good opportunity, not a total surprise. When we hired Liddell 4 or 5 years ago, he just has done an outstanding job, was impressive in the interview, but more importantly, he's done a great job here. He's got a great family and has NFL experience, so I know he'll do a great job with the Giants, and wish him all the best. Certainly very appreciative of his contributions here. And then I think we're all excited about the gentleman who's going to replace him. Really good about to have Omar Young join the group. He most recently was with the Patriots. Has experience with a lot of NFL teams, coached in college as well, and just really excited about, I think the contributions that he'll make in our program. Great young person. And then also, I think, Warren Ruggiero joined our staff a month and a half ago, whatever it may be now. He was a coordinator for quite a while with Dave Clawson down at Wake Forest and Bowling Green prior to that. And Coach Clawson's a guy I've got a lot of respect for. What they did at Wake Forest, I think, is really impressive. He's a tremendous football coach. They have some challenges there in their lot in life, if you will, but they've really done a great job at Wake Forest, and Warren was a big part of that. So good to have him with us. Roster-wise, we added 5 transfers at mid-year, and then we had 10 incoming freshmen join us also. And so, good to bring those guys. The 10 freshmen is probably a high number, probably the highest we've had, I'm guessing. I haven't really gone back and looked it up. And then, the portal, I think, as you know, we're not trying to build a roster out of the portal. I'm pretty sure I'm correct in saying we're the lowest number in the Big Ten. I think Penn State had 6, we had 5. And I think Northwestern had 9. Everybody else, it seems like, is in the teens or beyond. So it's really, hopefully it's the right thing to do. It's just what we believe in. And, fortunately, we haven't had a lot of attrition. So happy about that. But eager to see these guys on the field. It's been fun to watch them last, month and a half, 2 months here. And been really impressed with the group overall and see how that all shakes out. Then the last point, just, I think obviously we know it's a new world in college football. It's an old world, but a new world, just continually changing. And I don't think that's going to go away. And for the most part, though, it's still, all the stuff we're talking about is pretty much external to the program and external to the game. And, so in that regard, we're going to try to do the best we can, given who we think we are and what we want to be, what we want to look like, and try to make things fit, but be as smart and be as advantageous as possible in that regard. And then the game itself really doesn't change, and the way we approach the game, how we're going to coach it, and all those types of things, I don't see that changing a great deal. So it still gets down to trying to find players that really love the game, love the competition, love the challenge of trying to get better, and also have an appreciation for an ultimate team experience. And to me, that's what a good football program is. It's what we're going to try to build on a daily basis and see what we can do. And to me, if you get the right people that have the right priorities, they figure out pretty quickly the rewards will come. That's how it works. And if you do well, that's how it goes. And if you don't, that's how it goes as well. So that's kind of where we're at right now, and I'll throw it out for any questions. Tom, how about you? Caught me with my mouth full, sorry.
I wanted to ask about Grabowski and his recovery. Where is he at?
Yeah.
Or is he ahead of schedule? And any other guys that might be missing out on spring ball due to out-of-season surgery?
Yeah, he's the biggest one probably right now. Brian Allen had surgery too, which is going to keep him out. I'm not gonna. It's not no surgery's a routine, but it was a predictable surgery that a lot of players have had. So Brian will be with us full speed in June when that program starts. Mark, I don't think he'll be thrown lightly here, probably in a couple of weeks, but not with the team. And the biggest thing right now is just make sure nobody runs into him or he doesn't fall down. So just being cautious with him. But the recovery's going great. Everything's right on schedule, and he's probably a little bit ahead, that type of deal. But we'll play it conservatively. In a perfect world, you want everybody out there practicing. In his case, he's played a lot of football, and there's a lot of evidence that he knows how to play. he's smarter than the whole coaching staff combined. You know, Dean's list guy in mechanical engineering, so you know that part's I think going to come really quickly for him. And he's already Tim spent a lot of time. Tim didn't go on the road this year, so he spent a lot of time with the quarterbacks individually and collectively, more so individually during the winter months. And it's, you know, I think he's caught on. For new players, it's like learning a new system or a new language. That's the biggest difference. No different than when players jump in the NFL. You know, so they just got to learn the language, all that type of thing. But no, it's all going good, all going well.
Regarding Mark, what are your initial impressions of him so far? You've only been around him for what, a couple months now, so
Yeah.
what are your initial thoughts?
Well, I mean, first of all, we got to see him on film, and that speaks for itself. Whether it was, you know, how he played, but more importantly, I think, you know, quarterback's all about, it's a leadership position. There's no avoiding that. And, you know, he clearly did that. I mean, he delivered his team to victory a lot, and that's really impressive. Under-recruited guy. We had one of those about 25 years ago or 35 years ago. I'm dating myself. Or is it 45, whatever. 1981, that's 40 plus, right? But anyway, another under-recruited guy from Chicago did pretty well here. And that's one thing about that position. It's a really tough position to get right. I'll deviate for 1 second. I had some free time last week and just going through some stuff. I tend to collect stuff. It was an article about a pretty prominent school in the South that had, you know, it was like one of the first big bonus baby contracts, if you will, NIL. And I looked at the guy's name, and I don't know who he was, with all due respect. So anyway, he's been on, I think he's on his third school now. It didn't work out wherever he had gone, and despite the money they paid and all that other stuff. But my point is, like, that's a position that's, you know, it's, you never know. And hear Bill Polian talk about it all the time. It's about 1 out of 2 that they get right, whether the guy's the first guy, second guy in the draft. There's really no way. But in this case, you know, Mark's a proven player. He's done it on film. Hasn't done it at the Big Ten level necessarily, but good players are good players in my mind. And I think I'm more impressed with just kind of person he is and just his demeanor. He's a, yeah, I would call him kind of fairly quiet, but he's got a humbleness to him and a confidence to him that's very genuine, I think. And I think that whole room is really good right now. You know, Hank's been a great addition. Can't say enough about Brandon Sullivan going back to June when he showed up last year. His work ethic, just his personality, his leadership traits. And so it's a really good group of guys right now. They're really competing well with each other. Yeah.
What stood out to you out of him so far now this year?
Yeah, I'm not saying I like doing coaching searches because, I mean, you know, perfect world, everybody stays here, but the world's not perfect, and Liddell's a great example. I mean, he had an opportunity he's really excited about, and I get that, and I'm fully supportive. I think that's every coach's decision to make a decision on what's best for him, and that one made perfect sense. So, you know, it was the fun part of it is, you know, we all work collectively on it. I say we, the offensive staff primarily in this case. And, you know, you start doing research, and, you know, we started out pretty much got it down to about a list of 4 or 5 that we were serious about, and then cut that back by a couple. But, you know, felt really comfortable. There were probably 3 guys that we could have, I think, hired very easily, and it would have worked out really well. But Omar just kind of rose, and the last step of the process was bringing guys to campus and, you know, spending time with them in person. You know, we did Zoom calls. You do a lot of calls and research and try to check sources, all that. But the biggest thing to me is getting quality people that we can envision, just like players. You can envision them really functioning well in our system. And, you know, whether it's the outside, you know, like living in Iowa, but also being part of the program. And then adding to it, and Omar, I think, so with his experience in the places he's been, some of the systems he's been involved in, I think he's, you know, the transition is going to be easy for him. And also, you know, he'll add to the equation. And then he's got really good personal skills, I think. So he's walking into a really good room. Liddell did a great job of bringing players in that really, I think, have you know, great futures in front of them. And it's an easy group to work with. Those guys like football and they like working. So I just think it's a good mesh.
You mentioned Warren Ruggiero. Just, I guess, how do you kind of, what's his role going to look like on the staff, and what has kind of stood out from working with him so far?
Yeah, that, talked about changing times and all that. We've grown externally. I never envisioned us having a social media department. Believe me, if you told me that 25 years ago or 27 years ago, so what are you talking about? So, but now we've got, several people doing that. So we've grown in that regard because that's just reflective of the time. Certainly our recruiting staff has grown. We had one person 27 years ago now. We've got a bunch of guys that help us out in that regard. But where I'm going on the whole thing, football-wise, one thing I've kind of been resistant to, and I just prefer smaller instead of larger when it comes to staff. I don't think we need. The game hasn't changed. It's still 11 guys and 11 guys, and then 11 guys on every phase of special teams. But one thing I think we decided we could probably create some value since we practice on Mondays, which is unusual. We go Monday mornings. Sundays are really tough, and they have been since 2015 when we switched it. So basically, the whole idea is, he's going to be doing some advanced work, and it's great. He's been here now probably 5, 6, 7 weeks. So he's really learning what we're doing, what we do, and then obviously he's got a lot of good ideas too, which is really nice. He's got a wealth and depth of experience. But I think the way I envision it is, when we finish up on our yesterday's game on Sundays, Warren will already be, he'll have a jump start on whoever it is we're going into, whatever preparation, and, just have some ideas and some presentation stuff for Tim to help make his process a little quicker, and same thing for the whole offensive staff. So, we felt like it was a way to maybe improve, our preparation process, and I think he's been great. He's a football guy all the way.
So what is your goal for the quarterbacks? You always have much more fully stocked quarterbacks room.
Yep.
Gronowski, you feel like in your mind that's your one, and then seeing two. What are you trying to do this spring with those other guys?
I think the way I'd phrase it, we feel like we know the most, ironically, about Mark, even though he's not practicing. That makes sense. But it's contradiction in terms, I guess. But, he's played the most, and, he's got that production. So, that's a starting point. And then the guys in the room we're really excited about, but none of them have, played 20 games or, 30 games. So this is a really good opportunity for them. Obviously, Brandon's a hell of a lot more comfortable now with what we're doing than he was a year ago. He got here in June. To me, it's amazing what he did pick up in a short amount of time. And the same thing with Hank. And, you got Jimmy there, and then Jackson's back too. So we're just going to let those guys practice and play and all that kind of stuff. And then whenever Mark's able to join us back, and really, we're not going to be evaluating or competing until August, then we'll go through that and just see what happens. But overall, the whole room is, pardon the pun, it's a lot healthier, and I just think we've got a better situation than we've had. And ironically, Spencer has been back in the building. He had another procedure done, but anyway, he's been around here for a while. And whenever he got tackled and that shoulder blew up a couple of Novembers ago, it's been a rough go since then. So it's just the way it goes. Sometimes you do the best with what's in front of you, but I'm optimistic, and all of us are, that we got a little better potential right now as we move forward. Right now, I'm looking forward to seeing where it all goes.
Kirk, appreciate the time. It seems like whenever fall camp rolls around or spring training comes around, you kind of light up when you talk about the team and just the pure football aspect of it, other than social media, other than game weeks and preparation. What is it about spring practice that you enjoy the most? Is it the purity? Is it just kind of focusing on yourselves? I'm just kind of curious what your insight is.
Yeah, the two most favorite times of the year for me, outside of being with my wife, Mary. Okay, just, we're out on a date, and we went on a date last week too. It was a pretty big deal. Went to, had dinner. It was a really nice night. But outside of that, okay, what I enjoy is being with our players. That's the fun in coaching. And spring allows you that, especially with the non-game planning part, which is a challenge in itself, and that's fun as well. But just, to be with the players and watch them practice, develop, see what they can do to get better, all those kinds of things. And, the challenge is how well can we teach as a staff and as coaches. So that's a fun time. And then I love August too, the same way. In August, pretty much you're blocked from the outside world. So this is a little bit of a mix because we're still recruiting, and I got nothing against recruiting, but it just kind of takes some time away from the team. But yeah, these are pure football periods. So that's the fun part about it. And you know, no jobs are perfect, but those 2 periods are really enjoyable because it's pure football. And again, you're not trying to game plan. You're not fighting the time clock necessarily. Yeah, he is not, and you know they finished up obviously just a couple days ago here. God, it feels like 2 weeks ago, but we haven't had conversation. I think he and Seth have talked a little bit, and I think you know for me personally, I think first of all he probably needs some time off. I've got a real appreciation for that sport and what it entails, and it's a grueling nature of it. Big Tens, nationals, all those kinds of things. So first things first, let him get away a little bit. And then take time to think his whole thing out. And it's, you know, we knew when we recruited him, you know, he may have to make a decision or maybe he can do both. We'll see how that goes. You know, I don't pretend to be an expert, but it just seems like, you know, there were 3 really dominant heavyweights this year. I say dominant, there were 3 guys that were just, you know, those guys were like, you know, 8-year veterans versus rookie free agents, you know, coming in. They were at a different tier. And as far as I know, all 3 are gone. I think they were all 6-year. One guy was like 10th year. So those guys are out and just, you know, let him figure out what he wants to do. But I got to think he's got great opportunity in front of him there too. Not that he doesn't here, but it's a real challenge. Try to balance 2 sports, that's a challenge. So we'll wait and see what happens here. Good, likewise.
Somebody that had all the production in the world here, but as far as like the draft industrial complex, maybe not a first, second, third round pick.
Yep.
I was just curious when you were at the NFL level evaluating talent, what is the line between physical attributes, how high a guy can jump, how fast he can run, and then evaluating what he actually does on the football field, and how you figure out where a guy should be going in the draft in that sense?
Yeah, they're still trying to figure it out. And again, I cited Bill Polian, who I just, you know, I love Tuesday mornings because he's on the radio. And in fact, I might even drive to Des Moines just to keep listening to him, even though it should be coming over here. He is so good, but he gave a stat, whenever it was, a couple months ago, that changed over a 10-year period. They went from like, you know, whatever it was, being right 0.53 times or 50, whatever that is, 530%. It jumped up, I think, to 540%. Point being, like, you know, in the first round, there's no guarantees, and those guys spend a lot of money, invest a lot of time in the draft process, and they have a lot more information and access to stuff than we do when we recruit. Yet they still can't get it right every time. You know, it's impossible. And the amount of accuracy. His point was, if you can hit 550, then you're going to be a Hall of Fame GM. And so it's unpredictable, but the one thing, whether it's in, I'll couple Nick Jackson in there too. We just had our pro day. You know, you got the measurables and all that stuff, and that is important. It's a gauge. My experience is a lot of times people will use those numbers to either justify their argument for a player or against them. Either way, depends on how they want to argue it. And, you know, still your resume is what you do on film. In my opinion, that's the most important thing a player does is play football. And then the second thing in my mind is what they add to the team and what their attitude is, their determination, all that kind of stuff. I was telling a couple guys on Monday, I actually coached 2 guys that were both free agents when they came to us, one in Baltimore, one in Cleveland, that both played in Super Bowls and both had double-digit year careers, you know, linemen. One guy I had in college, actually, Mike Flynn, and he showed up in Baltimore wearing the same shoes he wore at Maine, which were the same ones he wore at Cathedral High School in Springfield, Massachusetts, 1989 or whatever the hell year it was. So, you know, some things you just can't measure with guys, and I cite those 2 guys because they're not size B guys like Jack Campbell, yet they're both football players and they add so much to a team. It's going to be really hard for somebody to cut those guys. I'm not saying they won't get cut next year, but it's going to be really hard when cut time comes. If you know, when you got a team in the NFL, you got 53 spots, and they can't all be all pros. You just can't afford that. Nobody can. Cincinnati's going through that right now. Somebody's got to be, you know, 40 down to 53. And if you can play special teams and add other things to a team and be versatile and be smart, you know, there's a lot to be said for that. You know, LeVar Woods is a pretty good example of that. He walked out of here. I wouldn't wasn't sure he was fast enough. I thought he might be a last cut guy. He played 7 years. So a lot of examples of guys that just, they got the right attitude, the right stuff internally. They can carve out a nice career in the NFL. And, Jay and Nick just played phenomenal for us. So, and we got a lot of guys like that, historically. It's been kind of fun to watch those guys.
Scott Ackerman with The Athletic. Kirk, kind of have a two-part question here, which is that it wrapped up the first 12-team playoff, and I think we saw a common element was that line of scrimmage football advanced teams, and the Final Four were totally line of scrimmage teams. Very physical in the way they ran, stopped the run, they were top 10 in defense. Did that kind of, if nothing else, reinforce that the tenets of this program are exactly the way it needs to be successful? And on the other side is you lose a couple of offensive linemen. How do you feel like that's going to? How do you feel like your offensive line will perform this spring?
Yeah, it's a big area of interest. I mean, we're watching everything, obviously, but losing a couple guys that really played their best. Both of them were out there on. You think about Connor and throw Ellsbury in there too, but Connor and Mason easily played their best football last year. And that was one thing I said in August. I felt a little bit more confident about our offense last year because historically, if you've got a good offensive line, if your quarterback plays good, you got a chance. And then, we had some ups and downs at quarterback with injuries, that type of thing. But Caleb stepped up and did a great job around the football. But a lot of that was what was going on up front. We were more veteran up front finally. And, the guys that are in line to compete for those jobs right now, or at least they didn't just get here. They've been here in the program a couple of years. I think their physical maturity is going to enable them to compete and, hopefully keep our standard where we'd like it to be, and hopefully we're going to improve at the other spots. So, I'm cautiously optimistic right now. I'll know more here in about 15 days, but hopefully we'll have good, healthy competition and be good there. And same thing on the other side. It's going to be really important that we do the same thing there. We lost a couple good players defensively and some really experienced guys. So, but again, I think we're seeing growth with the younger guys. That's fun. We'll never be deep enough. We never have been, never will be. But I think, if we can get 6, 7, 8 guys defensively can play, and the same thing on offense. If we can get 7, 8 guys that we feel confident can go in a game and play well, then, we'll have a chance to be okay there. But that is it's going to be paramount, I think, for anybody to be successful.
Regarding the playoff,
Mm-hmm.
then did that reinforce or validate whatever style of play in some ways?
Yeah, I mean, I just, again, the more things change, there are exceptions to everything, how you play stylistically, but pretty much, it's just a lot easier. Go back to what I just said a minute ago. It's a lot easier if you can block people. It's a lot easier to be good on offense no matter what you do. And if your quarterback play is good, that makes things a little bit easier too. And it's been a challenge for us. I mean, I think everybody knows that. And it's nobody's fault. It's just, we've had some injury situations that have been a little bizarre there at that position. So hopefully, we can get that solidified a little bit and just, it starts by making quote unquote routine plays or makeable plays, the ones that are there and that are open. If you can execute those, that's how you get good things started. But we haven't done that well enough to expect to be where we want to be offensively. Yep.
Has a year to recover, sticks around and coaches while there's replacements coming, and I don't know if he thought he was going to get a chance to play again and had a hell of a season on Logan.
Yep.
Back here helping these guys on Friday. If you could just speak to his resolve and what he's been through.
Yeah, he's just a really exceptional guy. And that was apparent when we met him. He came out here. They flew through the night. They played in the playoff game out there. It was off schedule because they had the fires in California, whatever year that would have been. And the first time you meet him, he's a little different of a guy. He's kind of an old soul back then. And I mean, one quick side story. I asked him who his favorite musicians were. The first night I met him, he talked about Cody Jenks, who's a fairly modern country guy, country artist. Then he said Waylon Jennings, and I'm like, how do you even know who Waylon Jennings is? And second thing, you're from the Bay Area, like, why, Waylon Jennings? Are you kidding me? So that kind of tells you a little bit about Spencer. A different guy, but he's a really smart guy. I think he's going to get in coaching at some point. He's wasting a good brain, but he's really sharp. He knows what's going on, and he understands the game pretty well. So, it's just, but it's tough. Injuries are tough, and if it weren't for injuries, it'd be a great game. But it's part of the game, unfortunately. But he's rebounded well, and I think he's going to try, give it a shot in the NFL. He threw it really well the other day, so we'll see. Excuse me.
Take 3 more.
Yep.
First of all, with the linebackers, obviously you lose quite a bit of production there. What kind of stood out to you about them? With kind of needing to get down to 105, kind of how much is that kind of in the back of your mind, and how much are you still kind of having conversations about that at this point?
Not a lot. I mean, we turns out we're in the minority. I didn't take any surveys or do any surveys back in the fall, but we chose to let our guys know in December if we couldn't guarantee a 105 spot. We told our players that and allowed them to go on visits and still be part of the team and still go to the bowl and all that. But I just think we were all in agreement staff-wise that the right thing to do is let guys know and be transparent with them. And we've got a handful of guys that know right now they don't have a guarantee that chose to stay here this spring instead of go out and find places. But it turns out like I guess nobody else is doing that. I actually had a son coaching at the FCS level, and I told him just you ought to wait till end of April, and just get your net out and catch whoever gets, whoever falls through, because apparently that's what's going to go on. From a competitive standpoint, that would have been smart. I just didn't think, it was the right thing to do. And these guys come in here and work hard every day. So, we've got a lot of guys that have found new homes, whether it be in the MAC, FCS. John Pascuzzi went to West Virginia on a scholarship. So I'm thrilled for all those guys. So we're pretty much there. So the hard discussions have already taken place. And not to be critical, but if I would, make a recommendation, it would have been nicer if they'd stair-stepped it down, given us a year to get to 105, kind of going. But it is what it is, so we've dealt with that. So I think our roster's pretty much where we need it to be right now. It's pretty much under control. And as far as the linebackers go, we graduated 3 really good players. Kyler Fisher had an outstanding pro day out there, maybe as good as anybody. So, you hate to lose that kind of leadership and production, but I'm anxious to see, what's going to go on. Jaden Harrell's been here. He's been working his tail off, and it just seems like his demeanor has grown since, maybe it's my imagination, but since January. So eager to see the guys on the field and who's going to emerge, who's going to compete. But I think we've got a really healthy competition, and I think we've got a bunch of guys that are eager to go out and play well, given an opportunity no different than Jay a couple of years ago when the door opened. Well, he played great for us, and he won't be a first rounder, but he was a first round talent college-wise for us. Played awesome.
John basically said he's entering the portal. The defensive back room at this point, how do you evaluate kind of where that's at?
Yeah, I mean, that's one less guy in the competition, basically. And that's what it is, and it's what it was when he came in to tell me he was going to be leaving. So, right now the 2 most experienced corners are Deshaun and TJ. But I think we've got a bunch of guys competing right now, and it's kind of similar in the secondary a little bit with Quinn graduating. But I guess it's kind of like a lot of places right now. I'm excited to see what happens. I think we've got a lot of guys. I'll start with Deshaun and TJ. Both of them have improved in the winter program. They're stronger, more mature, tested out much better than a year ago or 2 years ago. So, which is what you're hoping will happen. And then we've got some young guys, behind them are eager to have an opportunity too. So. It's different, as I kind of alluded to in the opening comments about the defense being, I think we all knew Higgins was going to be our Mike backer last year, and that's how it shook out. Right now, there's a lot of variables going on and a lot of different moving parts, and it's going to be fun to kind of see how it all shakes out. But again, concerned about depth always. You never feel like you have enough good players, guys that can go into a game and be ready to play. But I also think we have a lot of guys that have the opportunity to maybe grow into that position, and we won't have the answers at the end of April, but we'll be further down the road and know more about where these guys are now compared to where they were in December. And I'll go back to one of the points I tried to make initially, especially I think in college football, NFL to a degree, but in college football, like the difference between a player in December, the next April, a lot of times can be really big and significant. And I would say the same thing in August, and especially with the younger guys right now. Some of those guys, it was the first real intensive winter program they've been through because they were wrestling or playing basketball, doing things like that, running winter track. And then You know, so their opportunity to grow and develop as football players is really, there's a bigger window, and that's kind of the fun part about it. So it's always curious to see who makes those jumps, and sometimes it's not first, second year guys, but it might be a third or fourth year guy. You know, I remember when Mike Daniels, you know, all of a sudden it was in December, but all of a sudden it's like, whoa, this guy, what happened to him? You know, all of a sudden he was just like turbocharged out there. So just, you know, when a guy hits stride a little bit, but you know, they got to be investing, and I think our guys are investing. So that's kind of curious to see what happens here.
Last question, Chad. Yeah, Chad Leisinger, one register again. At the very beginning, you said there's a lot of positions wide open right now.
Yep.
So, to you as the head coach, which ones are most fascinating to you? Which ones are most intriguing to you?
Oh,
What's spring here?
it's all kind of interesting because you just, you know, it all kind of meshes together. I don't think there's a lot of drama. Like I think I know who our center is going to be right now. I got a pretty good feeling on that one, but you know, some guys make it easy that way. That's, you know, that was Higgins a year ago, I guess. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting things going on. So you know, it's all curious about all of them, quite frankly, because it's all going to impact everybody else. So it's, yeah, I don't know. It's all good. It's one of the fun parts about this thing. So we'll see. We'll see. Maybe deep snapper, because, I mean, I know this. It's hard to get out of a game. You don't have one. We don't need that problem. Wow. I think we'll get that solved. Okay. Thanks, guys. We'll see you this spring.